Hello. It is currently 2:30 a.m. in the morning. I have just finished moving into my new apartment, and I had to basically create a. I've set this all up. It is not the lighting is bad. Whatever. We're gonna just get into this. Bear with me. I apologize. It's not the best production, but I had to do this video. I had to do this video because it is 2:30 in the morning, and in just a few hours, there's gonna be some news that comes out from Riot Games, which I'm going to tell you guys about, and it's actually much bigger than the news that I think you're going to hear. I'm going to explain why. So the way I'm going to do this, I know you saw maybe the title of the YouTube video. I just want to, for purposes of clarity, I'm going to separate this into what is getting announced, the actual context that you need to understand what is getting announced. And that's just all like fact-based stuff. Then I'm going to give you my analysis and my take on the other end of it. That way I'm just kind of fair and you can decide at what point in time you want to drop off. Okay, so what is getting announced today is that if you have ESPN Plus, which is a subscription service for ESPN subscribers, you can watch NALCS games using that subscription service. ESPN Plus, for those of you that don't know, if you have it, you can watch other sporting events and other types of content. It's basically their internet-based service like HBO Go or HBO Now or Netflix or whatever. Instead of having ESPN as a television channel, you can have ESPN Plus. You consume content that way. So LCS is going to be part of that package now. So it doesn't matter to you if you don't have ESPN Plus, you just don't get to watch it on ESPN Plus. It's still available on Twitch and YouTube. My understanding is that they don't view themselves as competing with Twitch and YouTube. This is something different. And one of the things that they're really, really excited to talk about is how they feel like this is bringing the LCS, the NALCS, to a broader audience, right? To the ESPN Plus subscribers out there. They can actually find this on there. It's more of like the mainstream audience. So they're touting it as this big thing where now the LCS is coming to a bunch of mainstream sports fans. Okay, that's what the announcement is. And the thing to understand is that, okay, you have to understand that at the end of 2016, you've probably heard a little bit about this, there was a really big deal that was announced called the BAMTech deal. BAMTech was formerly known as MLB Advanced Media. MLB Advanced Media was a technology company that was created by, among others, the owners of Major League Baseball, a bunch of the owners, so that Major League Baseball games could be broadcast in the U.S. To people online through a subscription service. A very advanced company, ended up being the backbone for a lot of other video services. Went from being MLB Advanced Media to BAMTech, which got invested in by Disney, which owns ESPN. Stay with me. Disney, which owns ESPN. Eventually, Disney bought the whole package of it. All right. So this announcement, there's a big announcement around all this at the end of 2016 about a really big deal that was being done by BAMTech and Riot Games. I'm going to link to it in the description of this video. You can look at there's a 45-minute interview that I did with Riot Games and then the president of BAMTech, Bob Bowman. This was when I was at Yahoo Esports. And let me tell you guys, this was like the biggest deal that was ever announced in esports, in my opinion. All right. So the nature of this deal was that it was supposed to run through 2023, if I remember the year correctly. It was like a 7-year-long deal with an average of $50 million a year going to Riot Games for the rights to this deal. Basically, what was happening was BAMTech was going to make a special experience, a special stream in a special app that they were going to create just for League of Legends fans. So a pretty good example of this is that the BAMTech does all the technology for HBO Go and HBO Now. I think both of them, if not one of them, either way, they're very similar. So if you've used that technology before, you've used that player, that experience, that is something that, is kind of an example of something they could have brought to League of Legends. So this was a really big deal. Alongside the fact that they were going to be developing an app, they were going to also be helping Riot do sales. So they're going to bring sponsorships and ads and money to it. This was sort of seen, in my opinion, I'm trying to avoid my opinion, but just for context, like, this was seen as, instead of Riot betting on Twitch long term, Riot was going to bet on this like really big technology company, huge deal, did amazing video streaming for traditional sports, and this company was going to be like the really big. This was going to be like the flagship thing that really brought League of Legends into an amazing viewing experience. And the money, the business on the other side of this was so huge, right? Like $50 million a year Riot was going to be getting for this. And again, like, just watch like the first, if you really care about this and you want to learn more, just watch like the first 10 minutes of the video that I did, the interview that I did that's linked there from the end of 2016 where I'm interviewing everybody. This was a huge, huge, huge deal when it got announced. And I think the only thing that really compares to it is the giant like $90 million deal that Overwatch League and Twitch announced somewhat recently. So I cannot understate how much of a huge deal this BAMTech thing was going to be. Just a flagship thing, etc. Sorry if I'm rambling. It is late. I am exhausted. I moved. So imagine a world where you've got Riot and BAMTech comes out. They announce this big app. They're going to create all these amazing experiences. They talk a lot about how BAMTech talks a lot about how they want to create like a best-in-class experience for customers of League of Legends. So if you are into NALCS, this is going to be the biggest, best thing ever. Not only are you going to have an amazing viewing experience, but you're also like it's amazing for the league and for the ecosystem because all this money is going to be pouring in. Everything's amazing. This is going to be like basically like foundation of so much of what LoL esports is going to be built on in the future. Now, this is at the end of 2016, and shortly thereafter, so they sign this deal, they announce it, woohoo. A year and a half later, no word had been heard about this until basically today. So what's important to know is that after this announcement came out, Disney, which had a minority stake in BAMTech, ended up purchasing basically the rest of it, the majority stake. And so BAMTech became owned by Disney. Suddenly this deal between Riot was also a deal between Disney. And Disney owns ESPN in the States here. ESPN, for those of you watching internationally, you probably know about it. It's a huge, huge sports network and content network and all that stuff. So today, they announced that NALCS games are going to be on ESPN Plus, and that this is the new deal. That the deal that was announced at the end of 2016 is gone, and that this is the new deal. It is a multi-year deal, unlike the announcement at the end of 2016, where they talked a lot about how much money this deal was going to be for, and how many years it was going to be for, about 7, I think. They have said they're not saying any other information. There's no conversation about money. There's no conversation about how many years. There's just basically no data to go off of other than like this one thing. And again, this is the new deal. So everything you heard before about the crazy big video platform, the customized app, the great experience for League of Legends fans, all that stuff is done. The money is done. That deal is done. This is the new one. All right. So that's the facts. That's what's been announced today. Is that this ESPN Plus thing is happening, and that basically this is we're getting rid of the other deal. That announcement, all that stuff is now not relevant. All right. So there's the facts. Now we're gonna get into my opinion and then my analysis. So you can stop watching now if you don't care. If you want to go read somebody else's opinion, and I encourage you to do that because I'm sure there will be other opinions. But now we're getting into me explaining to you my take. My take is this. This is disastrous. This is really, really not good news. No one should be happy about this, in my opinion. Riot should not be happy about it. NALCS owners should not be happy about it, especially after they just got franchised in. ESPN and BAMTech should not be happy about this because they had a giant dream for what this thing was going to be, and now it is the tiniest thing ever. And I think viewers and spectators shouldn't be happy about this because they were basically told, even if I know a lot of you might have forgotten or maybe missed the memo, that they were going to get an amazing experience and an app and all this great stuff, and this investment was going to come in, and all that is essentially gone now. It's essentially gone. I was trying to think of a good way to explain like the differences in this, right? Because what I've seen is there's some language I think in the press release around this. Maybe I saw it someplace else where this is supposed to be the evolution of that deal, right? For context, saying this is the evolution of the deal, in my opinion, is like saying, hey, we're gonna build an amazing resort and casino and world class like amazing experience on the Las Vegas Strip, right? This amazing resort, tons and tons and tons of money is gonna go to this. It's gonna be amazing. Everyone's gonna want to stay here. And then a year and a half goes by, you hear nothing else about the memo, and they say, guess what? Because of how crazy it is in Vegas right now, we have decided the better thing to do is to build 5 billboards outside of the Las Vegas Strip on the freeway coming into Las Vegas, and that's the new deal. The new deal is 5 billboards, okay? I cannot explain to you how disappointing this is. The new kind of talk about this, again, I mentioned this earlier, is that the ESPN Plus situation is going to be great because it's going to bring League of Legends to like a broader audience. That means that for those of you who watch League of Legends, this is not a product for you, or at least they're not targeting you. You know, they're not trying to compete with Twitch. They're not trying to create with YouTube. They're not trying to create like a premium experience for you. This is to bring League of Legends to a broader audience. So you don't get like the awesome stuff that was talked about before. You don't get the app. You don't get any of this stuff. That's done. And on the business side, this is disastrous. I'm not saying it's the end of the world or the end of NALCS or LOL esports, but this was going to be like the core revenue, that was going to come into the NALCS into LOL esports as a whole. And you got to imagine that the owners that were coming in and willing to spend $10 million to get into the NALCS had seen this. You can go out around and Google. You can look for all the articles this was a landmark deal, and now that deal is nothing. All that money is seemingly gone. The deal to sort of help drive sales for LOL esports events is seemingly gone. It's just all over. It's all over. So we basically went from the biggest, coolest announcement that had ever happened in esports from a business perspective, and kind of from a technology perspective, by the way, in terms of what they were touting as the really great experience that fans were going to have. And now we have essentially nothing. No offense to the ESPN Plus thing, but again, in comparison, it's nothing. So I don't know what to say. It would be very easy for me here to just say, Riot sucks. And maybe they do suck. I don't know. The problem is that there is no information on what went on behind the scenes. So here's a good example. A year ago, right around this time, worked at a company that got acquired by a much bigger company. And my amazing, awesome thing that everyone was loving got canceled because it didn't fit into the bigger story for that company. That's the Verizon Yahoo story. Perhaps Disney acquired BAMTech, and there was all sorts of drama and weird stuff behind the scenes, and at the end, like, Disney just realized they couldn't prioritize this. Or they didn't have there were HR people. Sorry, not HR. There were human resource issues that stopped the people that were going to work on the project from being part of this project, or they got shifted, or they left, or offices closed down, or any number of different things. Like, there's a lot that shifts whenever something like this happens. But it's hard not to imagine that Disney would want this and that BAMTech would want this. So maybe it was on the Riot side. Maybe Riot was unable to deliver their end of the bargain when it comes to technology. Maybe the viewing numbers weren't where they needed to be. This is the problem, is it's all just speculation. And so it's really hard to figure out who to blame in this situation. And then my SD card ran out of space and I had to get up and reset. Anyway, at the end of that interview that I did at the end of 2016, there was kind of this moment where I asked about how it was the first time that I'd really seen Riot be really transparent with numbers and sort of the business side of the esports landscape, I guess. So, normally they didn't talk too much about that, but here we actually got like how many years the deal was for, how much money, etc. And so I asked like, is this something where you guys are going to be more transparent in the future? Is this a good sign? And I think it was Waylon, might have been Jared, but one of the Riot guys said to me that they couldn't do it all the time, right? They couldn't talk about the sponsorship situations all the time because sometimes sponsors don't want to do that. Sometimes it's just not the right time. But here, that overall they were going to try to be more transparent in the future. What is disappointing to me about this is we have so little information about this. We don't know how many years this deal is for. We don't know how much money it's for. It's probably not very many years or very much money. And I kind of get it. I get it. You don't want to be too transparent about stuff that is basically like a loss. But I don't know. It's still disappointing. And anyway, just the point is, I think the big question is, where do we go from here? What's next? Like, this is a giant loss. This is a giant loss for League of Legends esports, but also esports as a whole. And so how do we recover from this? I think this is the most public failure that Riot's esports endeavor has hit, maybe ever, and probably one of the larger failures for that company. Certainly, they've probably had a lot of failures behind the scenes. They've probably had a lot of missteps. They've probably canceled games. But like at Magma Chamber, Dominion, there's been a lot of mistakes, but the scale of this is pretty big. So I hope that it is a moment for Riot to really reflect and say, like, oh crap, we need to recover from this. How do we recover from this? And move aggressively to monetize the league, to start filling in the gaps from what is going to be a really big lack of revenue that you expected. And also, I think, not just through traditional sponsorships, but I think the broadcast rights idea was a smart one. And figuring out a great way to distribute your game your broadcast was a smart one. I would love to see them potentially do something similar to what Overwatch League did with Twitch, because I'm guessing there'd be some interest on the Twitch side. For those of you who don't know, a very similar big deal with great integration into Twitch. And if not Twitch, then maybe YouTube. Let's figure out a way to, if it's not going to be BAMTech, how do we figure this out? Because right now, the business side, the viewing experience side, it's just, it's not what we thought it was going to be. So I don't know. I hope that works out. Again, like I don't, there's a lot of unanswered questions we'll probably never get the answers to. I'm not sitting here going to scream at anybody. I'm just going to talk about how disappointed I am. And that's really what the point is of this video. It's just a huge disappointment for everyone involved. So anyway, hopefully that makes sense. Sorry for the random, terrible nature of this. I probably rambled a lot. It is now coming in at 3 a.m. And I've been moving all day. So production here is probably not great. Don't have a sponsor for this Travis Talks. If you would like to support, if you found this helpful, if you thought it was insightful, please feel free to hit up the Patreon or the support links below. That'd be really appreciated. Thanks for watching.